Dans cette troisième interview, nous parlons Fintech, les nouvelles technologies au service de la finance. Autrement dit, comment est-ce que ces Fintech peuvent améliorer l'accès à l'argent et améliorer les services financiers. Et pour en parler, deux chercheurs de TSE, Chuqing Jin, jeune chercheuse chinoise qui a fait son doctorat à Boston, qui nous a rejoint il y a peu, et Milo Bianchi, chercheur italien, spécialiste de la finance et qui est parmi nous depuis 2013.
When you ask people whether new technologies make them live better, they tend to respond yes. To a large extent also when it comes to financial decision. And we can see a reason why. First, financial technology allow to serve people at lower costs, and so to serve people who typically have not been served before. And second, they use new data, new ways to process information, and this can help build better service for people.
So in my research, I also find that new technologies not only reduce costs, they also provide competition for the existing old financial institutions in the market, and that will encourage the existing firms, the existing financial institutions to also lower their prices for the consumers and the investors.
Things, of course, are not so simple. There are risks that we have to be aware of. At the beginning, people tend to be very reluctant to trust new technologies and to trust algorithms. And now we are moving towards a phase in which maybe there is some over-reliance on algorithm. When people see some advice from a chatbot, they tend to rely totally on that. So what is the right trust to put on algorithm is a big question. Another is that the interaction with new technologies and with robots requires more and not less financial literacy, and more and not less digital literacy, and not everybody is well equipped. And so there is the risk that these new technologies amplify existing inequalities.
So on my end, there are two ways things could go wrong here. On the one side is that the consumers may not completely take advantage of these new financial products. So in my research, I find that the consumers, for example, tend to stick to the old products that they've used for a really long time, or they might be confused about the different financial products features that prevents them from making the best choices. So even when there are these new financial innovations, the consumers or the investors don't necessarily take a full advantage of it. And on the other hand, the financial innovations are not necessarily always good products. They might be just trendy, but not necessarily good investments. And in addition to that, they may just flood the market with a lot of products and making the choices even more difficult for the consumers and the investors.
I think it's fair to say that regulation in many countries, especially those at the frontier of new technologies, is lagging behind. And this is probably based in part on a belief which is false, that regulation is an impediment for the development of these new technologies. In fact, if we look at history, there are a lot of examples from the Industrial Revolution in which it was precisely because the right regulations were in place to ensure that new technologies were safe, that people could use them and they could be developed throughout the population.
So government regulations often affect how easy it is to introduce a new financial product to the market. I think this is also where our research can really come in and help. So it is really important for us to understand how consumers and investors really behave in the market, as well as the nature of these new financial products, and these knowledge will all help us to improve the regulatory environment in this market.